Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I welcome all of you for coming. We invite you here today to inform you about the forthcoming national conference on the environment and climate change, which is slated for June 2 to the 5th, under the theme Ecosystem Restoration, a pathway towards a greener and sustainable environment. The conference will be held at the Ministerial Complex in Congo Town on the date just stated, and will be climaxed in Roberts Post, Grand Cape Town County, with the celebration of one of our most important days in the environmental world, which is the World Environmental Day. Ensuring sustained environmental policy buy-in, seeking international commitment for the implementation of the Climate Action Plan of Liberia, called the Nationally Determined Contributions, strengthening existing cooperation, building new partnership among stakeholders, promoting a culture of compliance and enforcement of environmental policies and standards in the public and private sectors alike, promoting or reinforcing public awareness and education that will enable stakeholders to make informed decisions on the environment and natural resources, as well as align the National Development Plan towards a climate resilient and environmentally sensitive projects, or ANCHOR, remain the primary objectives of this conference. We consider the current status of the environment, wherein sustainable resource management is a challenge, and at the same time, the impact of climate change, which are increasing on a daily basis, ranging from coastal erosion, unplanned rains, mangrove management, sustainable forest, chainsaw activities, sand mining, and all of that, all of these, and pollution control will be covered, as well as waste management. Despite all of these challenges, our country, Liberia, is the only country in the upper Guinea forest ecosystem of West Africa at the National Conference on Climate Change and the Environment will present a moment for reinforcing Liberia's commitment to sustainable development, including of Liberia. The nationally determined contribution NDC are the heart of the Paris Agreement. And then you'll recall that Liberia joined the Paris Accord in 2015, and in 2018, the legislature ratified that convention. The NDCs, they are then our national climate plans, which highlight the nations or countries measures or plans that it intends to take in order to manage the environment responsibly. Liberia, ladies and gentlemen, at the end of this conference, it is expected that there will be an adaptation or an adoption of a document, or the signing of what we would call the Monrovia Declaration for Environment and Climate Action, as well as sign the MOU between land ministries. We are pleased that the President of the Republic has taken deep interest in the environment and what it means to this country, and this commitment he has in ensuring that the National Development Plan, which is the PAPD, is directed towards environmentally friendly and climate resilient ANCHOR. The NDC, in the case of Liberia, in the next week at the conference also, we will be presenting, the President will be presenting Liberia's NDC, which is our country's contribution to what we make in terms of the climate change and our contribution. We are currently putting it at $2.8 billion, and this is the first time that this country has been able to quantify its contribution to climate change and the environment. This is an important endeavor because it now states Liberia's contribution to the work towards ensuring that greenhouse gas emission is reduced. And so, ladies and gentlemen, this is the conference. We want to thank you very much for coming. If there are any questions, you can ask the question. I want to recognize the presence of some of our major partners. This conference has been undertaken by the EPA in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. And our partners present here today will be Mr. Fuentes from the EU. We have the support of the EU. Mr. Tume representing the United Nations Development Program. I think we have one of our representing the Conservation International. Our gentleman is there, and other partners who are there. We have had some discussions with the United States government through the embassy, and we do have their full support, and they are very, very active and supportive of what this country is trying to do in terms of climate change and environmental issues. Finally, I would like to tell you that this conference will build the prelude to the global conference that's expected in the United Kingdom, Glasgow, to be exact, called we call it COP26. COP is the council of partners that will be leading. That's the global conference. At that conference, each country will be making its case in terms of what it intends to do. And at that conference, what the president will launch at the conference, which is the NDC, we will be making that presentation to the COP conference. Thank you very much, and I'm open for any questions which you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll take questions, but we're going to do it orderly. You have to raise your hand and be recognized, identify yourself, and ask the question. So, Joe, and the question should be limited to the issue above. Joe, ABC Radio.
Mr. Jeff, Mr. Executive Director, Joe Neutral Wonder, ABC Radio. You talk about 2.8 billion being Liberia contribution. Is it physical catch, or in terms of our reserve? We talk about the greenhouse gas.
It's not necessary reserve. It's what will be required for us to continue to reduce greenhouse emissions. If we had a situation like that, any other country had that, this would be the amount that we required to do. Liberia is already doing that, so we quantify that as our contribution to the greenhouse emission. Any of my technicians can come. I have my technicians here. Any of them can answer the job.
Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jefferson Joe. I'm the manager for Multiplier Environmental Business and Environmental Protection Agency. The question you just asked with regards to the 2.8 billion is not a commitment from the government of Liberia. It's rather a quantification of Liberia's contribution towards greenhouse gas emission reduction. So, Liberia is saying, you are asking me to contribute to the global commitment of reducing greenhouse gas by 1.5% 2030. As a country, on my continent, I'm the biggest carbon sink. So I try now to stop going to the world to say just anything. I have cataloged the value of my contribution in terms of managing the greenhouse gas to be 2.8 billion. So the idea here is, if you don't want me to do this, the way for me to start doing as usual, business as usual, is you have to do this. For example, the energy sector is the biggest emitter of greenhouse gas. So the whole world is saying, can you stop using HFO? Can you minimize the usage of HFO? That's heavy fuel, fuel oil, to produce power. So to become more environmental friendly power generating country, the energy sector is costed as almost 1.2 billion. The EU is helping us with that. Maybe he will further elaborate. So that Liberia will stop using generators that produce heavy smoke, by the use of fuel oil. You have a lot of keke. I was just talking to Manuel, who is from EU, who is helping us with the energy, waste and other sectors that are the highest emitter of greenhouse gas. He said, look, there are kekes in the millions or in the multitude you have here. They have those ones that move only on electric. They don't need gas. So if you bring those ones and you pull it in the street, you pack the ones that use gas, it means you are reducing emission. If you have vehicles that are 15 years older and you are able to control the importation of those cars into Liberia, you are significantly helping to reduce emission. So all of these actions Liberia put together to say my contribution will be 1.2 billion, 2.8 billion in the total sum, but from different sectors. From different sectors. So we have 10 different sectors that will
Totaling that 2.8
total 2.8 billion in Liberia contribution. So our argument to the global community is, can you help us with this so that we stop business as usual? So it's not money that Liberia have to take to the world. Rather, it's money that Liberia is going to the world to say, if you do, give me this, I will be able to manage my environment to contribute to the entire world.
And since we have the largest carbon sink, I can say that we're in a better position to push that argument.
Yes.
Manuel?
Yes.
Yeah, Moses. From my name is Moses. Moses graduated from the Boston. I'd like to know from the European Union, you gave you support to Liberia. How important is Liberia in fighting climate change?
Well, Liberia is it will a bit slowly. They are trying to reduce the CO2 emissions. The fact that we are here trying to support the European Union means that, the fact that the European Union is here trying to support the Liberian government means that the Liberian government is very interested in at least the sectors that we are working. But even more, the Liberian government not just asks us, but also UNDP, CI, to support them, the government in building this very important document, which is the NDCs. It's a very important tool that not just is going to bring finance into the country, but also sustainable development to the country. So it's a good tool, very important tool that Liberia is going to present to the COP at the end of the year. And the interest of the government means that it shows because we are working together. 3 organizations, big organizations, are working together, side by side, writing this document.
Okay.
In addition to his response to your question, Liberia, as I earlier stated, is the largest carbon sink, meaning that the fact that you have the biggest forest cover of the Guinea forest region, your capacity to absorb what is already in the air is greater than many countries. So that makes you very important in the process of mitigating climate change.
Thank you.
And it's that reason that UNDP, CI, and EU said, but you actually know your critical position. That question now is what they need to answer for Liberia to say you have so much value to the world that you thought that you didn't know. So we came to help you to identify your importance towards emission reduction and quantify in terms of dollar. So that's why for the first time Liberia is costing on NDC.
Thank you.
Okay, let me just add up that Liberia submitted NDC. I'm able to make from Liberia submitted initial national determined contributions in 2015, that's about a little over 5 years ago. And in that NDC, Liberia made some commitments in terms of what it can do to contribute to the global effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, especially targeting some key sectors including energy and waste sector. So 5 years down the line, Liberia, like many other countries, who are members of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, has the opportunity to take a closer look at what it committed to in 2015 with the view of being able to revise its commitment. And in the framework of that, the United Nations Development Program, like Conservation International and the European Union, thought to provide support to Liberia so that Liberia has the opportunity to improve on its NDC in terms of increasing its ambition and looking at other opportunities where the country can make a bigger contribution to the global effort. Let me note that in terms of greenhouse gas emission, Liberia's contribution, the whole of Africa, as a matter of fact, contributes less than 5%. But when it comes to the impact of climate change, we feel the impact most because of our degree of vulnerability and our limited capacity to adapt. So the NDC is a national climate action that requires broad stakeholders' participation and support. For us at UNDP, we have been very keen to ensure that the youth are actively engaged in the NDC dialogue, likewise the women and overall gender community. So together we have been working with all of the sectoral actors from the different agencies to identify opportunities for Liberia to increase its ambition when it comes to its national commitment. So further to our achievement in 2015 with respect to the NDC, this time around we hope to develop an NDC implementation plan as well as cost the NDC so that we're not just making commitment, but we have a detailed strategy for mobilizing resources to ensure that the NDC is implemented. And under the leadership of the Executive Director of EPA, we are hoping that we can get the highest level of political buy-in for this NDC to ensure that Liberia remains a responsible party and is paying its due quota in terms of global effort to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions. This initiative from a part of UNDP has been supported under our Global Climate Promise Initiative that's supporting so many other countries.
Joseph Challenge for the government of Liberia. What I want to know is that the NDC and other activities of the EPA are paramount when it comes to the assistance and collaboration with international partners. Is there any reason why you have to take this long for this particular initiative to be launched? Knowing very well that Liberia has been a global part of the world in terms of this particular initiative, the inception of the EPA.
No, let me say this. You can say too long. It went like a building block. We are not just starting. Something happened before we got here. Had it not happened, we would not have been here. We probably on the 9th floor. So something happened. Well, there were steps towards this. And these steps, he said it before, this is not the first time. First NDC was done back in 2015. 5 years down the road, we have now broadened the scope of the NDC to say that, yes, this is what we agreed to do in 2015, but we can do more. And more than anything else, and most importantly, we have quantified in dollar and cents what is required to continue to contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gas. So we're not going to discredit the past. Something started, and we are just going forward from there. And this is where the president is now saying we have to come forth as a country and do what we have to do because the issue of climate change and the environment is critical to our national development.
Let me add up that the issue of NDC actually emerged as an outcome of the Paris Agreement, which was held in 2015 in Paris, France. So at that time, the world community felt that, look, we as a globe, we are not doing enough to combat climate change. We need to work together, individually and collectively, to achieve our global climate ambition. Our ambition. So under the Paris Agreement or the United Nations Framework Convention, they have something called common but differentiated responsibilities. So the Paris Agreement raised the pedestal when it comes to global climate ambition, and it was within the framework of that agreement that the world community agreed that, look, each country must voluntarily come up with what it can do to address the issue of climate change. So in response to that, in 2015, Liberia prepared what it called its initial nationally determined contribution. And every 5 years, each country has the opportunity to review, confirm, or revise its NDC. So 5 years from 2015, Liberia has that opportunity. And Liberia has actually been engaging with looking at its business as usual scenario, looking at its emission database from the different years. Just want to say, look, we think we can do a little bit more. So the national conference is like that event that allows the EPA to be able to showcase what we are about to submit to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and to demonstrate that there is indeed high-level political buy-in to support Liberia's NDC.
Yes, and also let me just go in a little bit. Basically, also the EPA is a very cardinal institution when it comes to the issue of natural resource management and environmental protection. And all the years the EPA have been executing that cardinal mandate. It's also very crucial to mention that we have to showcase in terms of what we do as it relates to ensuring that the natural resources in Liberia are actually being managed sustainably. How do we interact with what we call concessionaire and proponent across the country? So basically, what are some of our requirement processes are? In recent times, you have seen there have been a lot of training events happening within the environment in Liberia. In most instances, we see a lot of wetlands that have been abused. We see challenges as a result of the issue of flood. How can we ensure that people understand what they need to do right now so that they don't come in harm's way when it comes to those issues that are resulting to flood? What can we do to ensure that we conserve our major ecosystems, especially some of the wetlands that are protected under international conventions? So those are cardinal information that needs to go out there. People need to understand. Moreover, we continue to see the usage of chemicals. There was a certain point in time, people only knew that ammonium nitrate was dangerous when they heard that there was a blacklist in Beirut, and because to some extent somebody heard that there was ammonium nitrate that entered the Liberian code, and people took it out of proportion. So it's very cardinal for us to mention how do we manage chemicals, because chemicals as a substance has an entire life cycles. It's something of cardinal environmental concern. So the public out there needs to be informed, they needs to be aware, we better be able to help. We continue to see people still go to the coast now to carry on BCM mining. Those are activities that undermine the resilience of the very coast that are supposed to be defending us. And those are other information that we also need to ensure that we can explain to the public. There are lots that need to be explained, especially the waste management issue. With the issue of plastic waste, what can we do to leave from just waste dumping to recycling to sustainable practices that allow that this conference envisages to be able to present to the public. I just thought to be able to explain that.
You know, and in addition to that, it's important also, the conference also intends to showcase EPA. Until about 6 months ago before I came here, I was in a large population that thinks the only thing that hears of green building, nobody knows what's going on here. Until I came in here, and to my pleasant surprise to know that we have some of the best minds in this country under this house. To showcase EPA, what it does, what its mandate is, and what it is doing to ensure that the environment is sustainably managed and that nothing threatens human life or the environment. If you hear in the last few weeks, you know that the situation with the wetland, meaning the swamp, people are building in there. We've done our work, and at appropriate time we inform you when we begin the demolition. But we want the concentration to be on this conference. I will also say to you that the EPA, in addition to the other things that they're doing, we started looking at chemicals. From what we are getting after just about 2-3 days of work, there is a lack of chemical in the country that's not supposed to be here. And this is not a dumping ground. We've taken a position that Liberia is not going to be a dumping ground, and we are going harshly to those people who have the chemicals. And the intent is to ensure that we lay out the procedures, the protocols for the importation and the management of chemicals as spelled out in the law. So there's a lot that EPA is doing, and we want to spread that awareness so our people can be able to understand that what we do is part of their daily life. Thank you.
Thank you very much.